What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the SPY, the Nasdaq, the QQQs, and the futures. Give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow and break down why the market might get a rejection off the 20 moving average, pull back a little bit before it does end up reacting to what Jerome Powell ends up saying on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'm going to break down how this could affect the markets, what you should be watching for, and why tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day. Now, before I break anything down about this, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks, and 5 could be a free AMC share, a free Tesla share, or a mix of all of them. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 3 weeks. Make sure you check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So when it comes to the overall market, guys, let's actually break down what's happening right now. If you look at the daily chart, you can see there were many times where the market dropped and we actually saw some heavy resistance around the 20-period moving average. You can see it right over here. This slowed SPY down during another counter trend rally back in May time. We actually came close to it. We ended up coming down, came close to it, came down. And then also there was actually an instance where we did break above it temporarily. We actually lasted about a week before we did end up coming down, right? So in my opinion, also if you look at like August, the same thing happened. We got rejected off the blue line, which is the 20 moving average, again and again before we did continue. So right now, on the daily, we're getting very close to this 20-period moving average. I know it's a little hard to see. It's currently at 405. So this blue line right here, this moving average, all right, it's very, very close to us, and we're likely going to see the markets testing it. And I think we're going to get rejected off it temporarily. That does not mean we'll never break above it during this rally. That's going to depend heavily on Jerome Powell. But I'm anticipating that the market's going to test this, get to about 405 or so, somewhere between 404 to 405. I mean, we could try to get a little higher, but once again, guys, I'm not counting too much on it. I think we'll likely attempt and then we'll end up just coming straight down. We'll likely see the market pull back just a bit because we are a little bit overbought. Now, that's going to be completely fine, but I do believe whether or not we end up establishing a lower high or not will depend heavily on the overall market. All right. And it's also going to depend on Jerome Powell, because Jerome Powell is going to be speaking on Tuesday. When Powell speaks on Tuesday, he's actually going to break down a testimony, which he's going to say in front of Congress. He's going to be speaking on Tuesday and also on Wednesday. So I don't know if he's going to pump the markets or cause the markets to crash. We'll just have to wait and see. What else is worth noting is the options chain is not too crazy for this week until Friday. It's actually pretty flat for the majority of the week. It's a little high on Tuesday in terms of put to call ratios, but Tuesday's a little high, and then also Friday. Right, so on Friday, it's actually a very high puts to call ratio at 2.12. The market makers might try to actually pump the markets near the end of the week. So maybe we sell off a little bit thanks to Powell. Maybe there's a bit of a pullback, but then going into as we approach Friday, the market might actually try to pump, and it might actually continue to try to get a slight pump thanks to Jerome Powell, thanks to the market makers that are manipulating this market. By the time we get to the week after, on the 17th of March, there's another 2.12 put to call ratio. So what's likely going to happen is Jerome Powell, even if he does slow the market down a little bit, the market makers might actually try to pump us up again, right? That's what they're incentivized to do. That's going to depend heavily on CPI as well. But now let's talk about the market, what's actually going to play out in my opinion. I'm anticipating that I don't truly know what Powell is going to say. I don't know if he's going to cause us to crash or not. But if anything, from a technical standpoint, it looks like the market's going to push up. SPY, once again, will get to about 405 or so, maybe a little higher or a little lower. And then it's going to get a rejection, pull back a little bit, and close somewhere in not too far from where we are right now, maybe a little bit in the red. I am anticipating a slight pullback. All right, a rejection and maybe a pullback. And then the real question is, what does Jerome Powell do? That's going to dictate whether or not we fill this gap and then balance and continue going, or if the market just crashes from here, right? It depends heavily on Jerome Powell. Now, that's for SPY. For the triple Q, I believe that the triple Q might try to get to about 300. It's going to test 300, maybe get a little higher, just barely. But once again, this is also getting very close to the 20-period moving average, right? Very similar to SPY. This thing has gotten rejected off of it a couple of times in the past. It's not as like pivotal for the QQQ as it is for SPY, but this thing is likely, in my opinion, going to try to get to about 300. Then it's likely going to see a rejection. Maybe it tries to fill the gap up here, then it rejects and comes all the way down to the high 290s. That could also happen for tomorrow for a somewhat red close. Then for Tuesday and Wednesday, it depends on what Jerome Powell says. The odds are favoring, though, from a technical standpoint, that Powell could cause the market to come down a little bit. Maybe we get back to the low 290s, and then we get a nice bounce later on during the week, especially as we get close to Friday, and then the market rallies again, right? That's what the odds are favoring. Once again, let's not worry too much about that just yet. As of right now, I'm seeing a slight rejection, and then it's going to matter based off what Powell says, all right? For Tesla, something very similar is what I'm essentially anticipating. Tesla might try to fill this gap, come a little higher to this like 203 area, maybe try to get to 205. I don't know for sure. And it's likely going to see a rejection. It might actually start to drop in value later on. And I do believe it's going to be heavily affected by Jerome Powell. Now, zooming out of Tesla, there have been many instances where the 20-period moving average was resistance for Tesla as well during many, many periods of time. So we could see the same thing play out as we're getting very close to it, right? We actually tested it and got rejected off of it previously. So this is the next major resistance zone around this 200 area. If Tesla could break 200, it's likely going to push up just a little bit to get to 203. If it fails to do that, it's likely going to see a pullback, right? And Powell could cause the whole market to pull back. If that ends up being the case, it will affect Tesla. But for tomorrow, I'm seeing Tesla might struggle to get above 200. I don't know for sure if we're going to break it. We're going to try to fight for it, but we might get rejected off 200, or we might go a little bit higher, just a tiny bit higher to about 203, and then get rejected somewhere there. And I am anticipating a bit of a pullback after that. And I think that Tesla could close very flat, maybe a little bit in the red for tomorrow. Now, don't worry too much about what the market does, at least for the super short term. We're going to have to worry more about what Powell says first, and then whether or not Powell pumps the markets. Once again, if the market does continue to rally, we have CPI coming out later. So please be ready for that on the 14th. Now, as far as T-Mobile goes, I haven't actually charted this, but T-Mobile or TMUS, this thing does have a gap down here. I do think this thing is underperforming just a bit. We're going to likely try to see a counter trend rally continue. It might try to push up just a little bit more to get all the way up to about this 143 area. Then it might get a rejection and come down to fill this gap. The dollar is coming down, but it's actually getting very close to a major level of support. Currently, the 20 moving average is around 104. I do think the dollar might come down just another like 50 cents or so and try to bounce off 104 or so. I think the 20-period moving average might be a little bit higher by then. So around 104.25 is where it might try to bounce temporarily and try to get back into this zone. If that happens, that could be a little bit bearish for the stock market. The VIX is also kind of oversold on the smaller time frames. I'm thinking the VIX might come all the way down to about 18, maybe a little lower, 17.8 around this zone, which is very close to the wedge. And we might see the VIX bounce just a little bit, at least as we approach the Jerome Powell day, right? Thus bringing the market potentially down just a little bit. And then for Apple, I'm seeing something very similar. Apple looks like it might try to either fight for gap resistance or even try to fill this gap around 152. Apple might pump just a little bit. I don't know if Apple's going to be able to fill that gap tomorrow. It might try. It actually closed above the 20-period moving average. It might try to fill that gap. Maybe it pumps the market just a little bit more, and then Apple gets a rejection off 152 and then starts, downtrending a bit. It's likely going to close a little bit in the red. That's what I'm still seeing. But Apple does look pretty bullish overall. I don't think Apple is going to underperform the markets. It might pull back thanks to Powell just a little bit into like the mid 145s. That's possible, but there's also a good chance it's going to try to bounce. Like I said before, it might try to get a really nice bounce later on. It will depend on Powell, but the odds are favoring that from a technical standpoint on Apple. Last but not least, before I end the video, I'm going to talk about the 10-year Treasury yield. This is coming down. It's coming very close to a major support zone around this 39.33 area. If it does test this line, it might try to get a bounce very close to this range. I do think it's going to come down a little bit. Maybe the market pumps a little bit more before this thing bounces and the market pulls back in anticipation of Powell. We're likely going to see lots of profits taking tomorrow, especially because of the fact that Powell is coming up, and a lot of people may not be wanting to hold options during that time. There is a relatively high put to call ratio for Monday, so there's a chance the market won't pull back too much. But be very careful for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It is actually a little bit on the lower side, and Powell could end up saying some capricious things. Once again, it depends on what he says. From a technical standpoint and based off the options chain, this suggests to me that by Tuesday/Wednesday, the market could pull back a little bit. By Thursday and Friday, the market might actually find its bottom on Thursday. Then by Friday, we might get another rally, once again causing pain for the shorts, as there's a lot of shorting going on for Friday, right? This is what the market makers might try, right? Maybe slow starts the week followed by another rally near the end. But I can't promise that, right? It depends on what, once again, for the fourth time, what Jerome Powell says. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening. I hope this is as clear as possible. This is what the technicals are suggesting, and I'll see you guys in the next one. The market to the moon, because the long-term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.